inspiring music video was Dia de los Muertos, produced by students at Ringling College Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. This film won the Student Academy Award Gold Medal in 2013. And as you saw, it is a short film about a little girl who embraces darkness by visiting the land of the dead, where she learns the true meaning of the holiday, Dia de los Muertos. Every year on November 1st, All Saints Day, and November 2nd, All Souls Day, many areas of Mexico, South America, Latinx communities everywhere celebrate the Day of the Dead, when the souls of the dead return each year to visit their living relatives. They eat, drink, and be merry, all with their living. And what we would typically think of as a dark time, that is, the loss of a loved one, Dia de los Muertos embraces this loss with celebrations, happy times, food, drinks, candy skulls, marigold flowers, and festivities, as you may have noticed in this film. Welcome to all. Happy Halloween and happy Dia de los Muertos. My name is Rachel Daniels, and I'm your worship associate, and this is another hybrid service, both in person and by Zoom. I'm joining you today from the fellowship. Don, our master audiovisual technician, is working his magic from Las Vegas. Pam, our worship committee chair, is our skillful technician here in the fellowship. The powerful and beautiful music that Carole provides for our service is being done safely from her home. The lit candles, hot coffee, delicious cookies, beautiful flowers out front are brought to us by the dynamic Sunday duo of Paul and Candy. In Unitarian Universalism, we accept you for who and what you are. We provide a non-judgmental religious home that will accept and support you wherever you may be in your life's journey. This is a safe space to stand up, stand out, and change your mind. Our only doctrine is love. For all those on Zoom and for those here in our sanctuary, thank you for being here. We appreciate you and your fellowship. And I am super happy to have back with us our guest speaker, Emmeline Cordingley. In her previous service, Emmeline spoke to us about fellowship, and the sermon was spiritual, passionate, and thoughtful. Emmeline will be speaking to us today on embracing darkness. During this spookiest time of the year, as our days grow shorter, can we learn to embrace darkness and its gifts? Emmeline is a Master of Divinity student at Starr King School for the Ministry in Oakland. Emmeline is studying to become an interfaith chaplain. Originally from Massachusetts, for the past 3 years, Emmeline has lived in and around Los Angeles and says she doesn't miss the East Coast winters at all. Emmeline enjoys walking in the mountains, drinking fancy coffee, and listening for the sacred in the rustling of trees. Unitarian Universalists have 7 principles that we affirm and promote. When looking at which principle today's sermon may mostly focus on, I thought maybe the 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Embracing darkness as part of the interdependent web could be seen as coming to fully encompass the oneness of all existence, the community forming power, the process of life, the creative forces, which of course includes darkness. I'm excited to hear from Emmeline about what embracing darkness could mean for us. For those on Zoom, the order of service for today's program is in the email notice sent to you this morning. For those in the fellowship, copies of the service are available in the back of the room, as well as the hymnals for our hymns and some of the responsive readings that we're going to be doing later. If you have a silent joy and sorrow, you can light a candle over here in our sanctuary at any time, and we'll have spoken joys and sorrows later on in the service. Emmeline will stay around for a short time after the service to answer any questions. We'll form a small circle so those on Zoom may participate with Emmeline. And again, this is after the service. Everywhere on Sundays, Unitarians light the chalice. Please grab a candle for those on Zoom if you have one nearby. Emmeline will light our chalice as I read our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice to shine on our inner peace, to brighten our love for each other and faith in ourselves. We light this chalice to be welcoming to whomever we meet and bring kindness to all living creatures. This is a light of inspiration, hope, and love. Now we're going to have our centering thought. And I thought we'd do this morning as a responsive reading. So if you're on Zoom, please unmute and read the italics. And also you in the fellowship, read the italics. And I'll start off with the regular print. When we open our hearts to the sacred in ourselves, something changes.
When we live in contact with the light, darkness, trees, moon, clouds, and soil, something changes.
When we know that the animals and plants and rocks are our neighbors, we begin to awaken.
We begin to realize what a tremendous privilege and joy it is to live harmoniously as part of the fabric of creation.
And this was left on the windshield of our car while we were shopping in Hawaii. And just for fun, I have some Halloween thoughts that we can read together. And I just pulled some sort of, well, first I pulled some sort of dramatic quotes from like Edgar Allan Poe, Dante's Inferno. And then I thought, nah, let's keep it silly, sort of light. And those will be up on the screen. And I thought we would read those all together. And there's only 3 of them. Okay, the first one, which we can read together. And again, for those on Zoom, please unmute. When black cats prowl and pumpkins gleam, luck be yours on Halloween. Just because I cannot see it doesn't mean I can't believe it. And then the last one. Shadows mutter, mist replies, darkness purrs as midnight sighs. Again, happy Halloween to all. Now we'll turn to our very talented music director, Carole, for our opening hymn, number 101, Abide by Me. For those on Zoom, the words will be in chat. And if you're here in the fellowship, please grab a gray hymnal in the back of the room. And while safely masked, you can sing along or hum along. And if you want to stand, you're welcome to stand as well.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Halloween. Please join with me on Abide with Me. When
Morning. Today's call to worship is a short poem by Mary Oliver, which I know the UUs love because she's in the book many times. The poem is called The Uses of Sorrow. In my sleep, I dreamed this poem. Someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this too was a gift. And now for our unison affirmation.
Please unmute and look at the screens as we read the short affirmation to remind ourselves why we come together.
Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant
to dwell
together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
And now we'll have our spoken joys and sorrows. First, we'll go to our Zoom attendees and then here in the sanctuary. And then we ask you to share what's ever on your heart today, whether it's a celebration or a sorrow. We want to support you and share in whatever's in your heart. To family joys and things getting better. And Peggy, I'm so jealous of being able to sit in the, being part of the classroom. That's just so great. And congratulations to our congregation. Over 300 pounds of food for as small as we are. And I was talking to Candy earlier, and Candy made the comment that it just feels really good to be involved. Not only are we doing a good thing, but it just feels so good for all of us to be involved in something making the world a better place. So thanks to all who shared. Now it's time for our offertory. Oh no, sorry. Now we have a reading from Emmeline, and then we'll go to offertory.
Hello again. So our reading is a little section from my favorite book. It's a novel. It's called Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. And it's all written from the point of view of a preacher in Iowa who is in his late 70s and has been told that he is dying. So this is the section. I have been thinking about existence lately. In fact, I have been so full of admiration for existence that I have hardly been able to enjoy it properly. As I was walking up to the church this morning, I passed that row of big oaks by the war memorial, and I thought of another morning, fall a year or two ago, when they were dropping their acorns thick as hail almost. There was all sorts of thrashing in the leaves, and there were acorns hitting the pavement so hard they'd fly past my head. All this in the dark, of course. I remember a slice of moon, no more than that. It was a very clear night or morning, very still. And then there was such energy in the things transpiring among those trees, like a storm, like travail. I stood there a little out of range, and I thought, it is all still new to me. I have lived my life on the prairie, and a line of oak trees can still astonish me. I feel sometimes as if I were a child who opens its eyes on the world once and sees amazing things it will never know any names for, and then has to close its eyes again. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmeline. There are many ways to help the fellowship, and one of the ways is by your financial support. Carole will be playing while we're passing the basket here in the fellowship. We'll have a slide up that shows ways to donate to the UUFLB, And then also in the e-blast about today's service, it includes 2 buttons to facilitate making payments online. And of course, you can always mail in your checks. And please stand as you feel comfortable. And we'll form a circle and we'll sing to each other while masked. And everyone on Zoom, we hope you'll join us as we sing, "From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live." Now, Emmeline will lead us in meditation.
It's time for us to sit in contemplation. Let us bring our attention back to our immediate surroundings, our body, our seat, the air that touches our skin, our mind. Let us notice how all things exist in opposite or complementary pairs, light and shadow, hot and cold, dry and wet, sound and silence. We are composed of complementary pairs. If you're closing your eyes, you can notice any colors that pop into your vision, even in the darkness behind your eyelids. If your eyes are open, you may notice any shadows in the room. Let us be with our quiet noticing for a moment. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. Yes, happy Halloween. I've tried to be prepared for you today. I wanted to find a witch hat, but I have my little witch hat mask and my candy corn socks, which are my favorite socks year round. I am very honored to be invited back to visit you, especially today, because it is my favorite holiday. It is the best one. The Halloweens of my childhood are some of my fondest memories. Every year I dressed up as what I determined to be the only two acceptable costumes, which is either a witch or a vampire, because I took Halloween very seriously, as I will demonstrate for you here. I think I'm 10 years old. This is the spirit I carry within me to this day. There are so many wonderful things about Halloween: costumes, candy, parties, friendship. But I have recently realized that the reason I loved Halloween the most is because it's a holiday about darkness. As a child, it was the only time that I would be outside at night for a long period of time. And this was so out of the ordinary that the darkness elevated it above all other holidays. And Halloween is intrinsically linked with darkness because of its roots in the Celtic celebration of Samhain. The Celts divided the year only into summer and winter, and Samhain was their new year. It falls halfway between autumn equinox and winter solstice. So Samhain, and now Halloween in its own way, marks our passage into the darkest days of the year. Now, as much as I love Halloween, I also dread the loss of light that accompanies this season. This is part of the reason I moved 3,000 miles across the country. I couldn't avoid the dark, I could at least avoid the cold Massachusetts winters. But as I was reflecting on what I wanted to share with you today, I realized that my dread is partly a resistance to the natural rhythms of the earth. The dark season will come every year, regardless of my personal preferences, and I'm deciding to embrace it and learn to appreciate what it has to offer. So this is what I have learned. On a foundational level, there is a general human resistance to darkness, which is an evolutionary remnant from our fear of the night. As the sun sets each day, our sense of sight is temporarily less available to us. During the night, our ancestors became hypervigilant, listening for indicators of peril, not knowing what sound was a threat and what was harmless, unable to see clearly, and thus less able to act on any real or perceived dangers. But our evolutionary forebears happened across fire roughly 2 million years ago. So we've been able to harness light since then. So where else does my resistance come from? And I've realized it's because I notice the change in my body's seasonal rhythms, and I feel shame about them. During this season, I want to sleep more, I want to eat a lot, I want to cuddle with my friends, I want to take baths, I want to lounge. I don't feel as productive. And this is a hard pill to swallow in a consumerist society where our value and our worth is most often judged by how much we produce. Productivity culture and its attendant shame is a huge barrier to embracing darkness. Throughout history, human life and activities were guided by these natural impulses, the natural slowing down in the darker half of the year. I want to illustrate the sheer long length of time of human existence. So Homo sapiens in our modern anatomical structure first appeared about 300,000 years ago. That's thousands and thousands of years of living with the rhythms of nature before we had the technological means to turn it to our will. One of our earliest huge technological advancements was the invention of boats, and that was only 65,000 years ago. So to further illustrate, I want you all to guess, when do you think we invented farming? And I really want to hear something, some yell of a 1,000-year guess. 70,000, 20,000, one more? 10,000, 10,000 is correct. 10,000 is correct. Farming was only invented 10,000 years ago. When I learned this, this blew my mind and rattled my understanding of time. But language spirituality, storytelling, dance, and music, all of those things predate boats and farming by at least 200,000 years. So it's hard to wrap my head around a sense of time so expanded beyond not only my own lifetime, the lifetime of my grandparents, but beyond even the lifetimes of the people first inhabiting this area of the world. Again, modern DNA, 300,000 years ago, first of all. So even if human life expectancy was consistently 100 years, that is 3,000 lifetimes. That's 3,000 lifetimes. This has given me a new understanding of our ancientness, because we are so ancient. And in our hundreds and thousands of years of procreating, the wisdom of millennia is passed down generation to generation and still lives in the bodies of each of us alive today. And that's not an intuitive guess. The study of epigenetics actually shows that one's environment and life circumstances can and do change an individual's DNA. And those changes can be passed on to one's children. So millennia of living and learning in the cycles of nature has actually changed us as a species. All of us alive today are descended from the same early humans. We all carry in our bodies their experiences of survival, resilience, and being part of the web of the natural world. As we've evolved, we've become less and less at the mercy of nature. We're safer and healthier, but we've also distanced ourselves from the benefits of natural rhythms. And we can still observe how other beings on the earth respond to seasonal changes. Plants are dying this time of year, trees are losing their leaves and sending sugars to their roots, animals are storing food for the winter or eating to build up fat to hibernate, birds are migrating south. We can learn from our animal and plant friends and from our own ancient past. And with this understanding, I believe we can relearn the significance and necessity of darkness and embrace its gifts in beneficial ways. So what are the gifts of darkness? I would say community, introspection, creativity, caregiving, and rest. And I'll start by saying that I am sharing what I've discerned as a few of darkness's gifts, but I believe the most powerful way to explore and embrace darkness is to develop a method and repeated practice of listening to your own body and recognizing what it wants. So, the importance of community. For thousands of years, we lived communally in large groups, in multi-generational families, or families defined not just by blood relations. The reminder of community's importance becomes especially significant in dark days, because while we aren't huddled together for survival any longer or struggling to survive the resource-scarce season of the year necessarily, darkness can be difficult for other reasons. I've struggled with the fall blues since I was a teenager, and seasonal affective disorder affects 5% of the US adult population. And with the approaching holiday season, maybe some of us are remembering our loved ones who have passed on and especially missing them this time of year. And in times of difficulty, community support is what can sustain us. And Indigenous wisdom knows this, whether it's Native American or West African or Irish, and the animal and plant kingdoms know this too. For example, chickadees in the Northeast, which are my favorite bird because they are the state bird of Massachusetts, they don't migrate south for the winter. And so their survival is dependent on their community relationship with evergreen trees, whose branches, still full of pine needles, give the birds a safe habitat to last through the darkness and cold. Even our evolutionary fear of the dark is soothed by community, whether it's being gathered around an evening fire or a child crawling into their parents' bed. So that leads me to the second gift, which is introspection. In the darkness, especially before the invention of artificial light, we weren't working into the night, at least not doing the same activities that we worked at in the daylight. Evenings were saved for cooking and knitting, for preparing and repairing for the next day or for the next season. The time for intense action is the day and the long summer hours of light. And this isn't necessarily true anymore in our culture of busyness and with striving to make ends meet, but embracing slowness, even in small ways, provides opportunity for introspection, which is important for our spiritual growth. In the dark, with fewer visual stimuli, we are left with fewer barriers between our attention and our thoughts. We have the opportunity to turn our focus inward. And sometimes this feels intimidating. Some of us resist stillness and feel agitated at the concept of being alone with our thoughts. And because it's so daunting, introspection is somewhat of a lost virtue, but we can explore self-reflection in many ways. By journaling, while we're cleaning, through meditation, on a long drive, in honest and trusting conversation with a friend. And these moments are available to us year-round, of course, but the blanket of darkness is a special invitation to listen to ourselves. The third gift is creativity. As I mentioned, storytelling among humans predates even our modern anatomy, and darkness is ripe for storytelling because it contains all possibilities. Darkness is uncertainty, mystery, the unknown, the imaginable and unimaginable. Light creates fact and certainty, which we need, of course, but we have to imagine and create with darkness, either the darkness of the night or the darkness of our sleeping minds. For thousands of years, dreaming has been a revered source of mystical information, art inspiration, and innovation. And there's evidence of humans interpreting their dreams for at least 5,000 years, but I'd assume it's a much more ancient practice than what archaeological evidence can show us. In keeping my own dream journal, I found it to be both a useful source of intel into my own worries, my fears, and my values, and especially when I'm swapping dream stories with others, has shown me how inherently creative all humans are. Another example of darkness and creativity can be seen in the countries closest to the Arctic Circle. So Iceland, Sweden, Finland, and Norway all rank in the top 20 most innovative countries in the world. And something they all have in common is that all or most of their geographic area is above 60 degrees latitude north, meaning that they experience extremes of light and dark. So as the year approaches the winter solstice, these countries approach 24 hours of darkness. And researchers looking at creativity in Iceland propose that their long days of darkness, where they spend more time indoors and in community, serve as an incubator for collaboration and creative pursuits. Embracing darkness in ourselves, we might find inspiration strike. Another gift of darkness is practicing care. Because of the historical difficulties associated with darkness, from resource scarcity to emotional struggle, during the darkest days, it is essential to explore how we take care of ourselves and others. This gift can work in tandem with the gift of introspection by asking ourselves, what kind of care do I most need? How can I ask for it? What kind of care can I best offer? And to whom can I offer it? Some care I've been asking for lately is a listening ear. And I have noticed that a recurrent need I have is to be listened to without being offered advice. Not everyone in my life can offer me this, and that is okay. We all have different talents and capacities and strengths. But if I continue to ask for it from people who cannot give it, then I set myself up for disappointment and I trouble our relationship unnecessarily. So it's also an act of care for myself and for the loved ones in my life to discern who is likely to be able to and to want to offer what I need. Reciprocal caregiving, being able to freely offer and receive care, strengthens community. And I want to pause on the idea of receiving care, because this is something I think many of us miss or deem less important, but we all need and deserve care. And I think this relates to the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Being able to accept care is especially important, I will say, for people who have traditionally been tasked with doing caretaking, whether they've chosen it or not, especially the Black community and other communities of color, women of all races, and queer femmes. And embracing darkness, the reality of its difficulties, may we also learn to value the offering and receiving of care. And a big form of care, and the last gift of darkness, is rest. We are diurnal creatures active in the day. Our circadian rhythm prompts us to sleep and wake by responding to light. When our pineal gland senses that there is darkness, the gland produces melatonin and we become tired. In these darker days, it's natural for us to feel a greater need to sleep. And there's an anthropologist named T.S. Wiley who argues that the invention and the widespread use of electricity keeps us in artificial daytime, and this disrupts our rest. And this is increasingly common in a 24-hour kind of global economy where 1 in 5 people worldwide work overnight shifts in artificial light. There's a series of studies conducted by in the past 14 years that has led the World Health Organization to make this kind of terrifying announcement, which is that they now label night shift work as a probable carcinogen, meaning likely to cause cancer, with a link to increased risk of breast cancer especially. So denying our body's natural and ancient rhythms has real physical and emotional consequences. But in an industrialized world, we can't necessarily turn back the clock. We can't necessarily quit our jobs. And changes in labor culture and policy take a long time to come about. But what we can do is find smaller and sustainable ways to honor darkness in our bodies and ourselves. I know this year I will be taking many baths in candlelight and eating lots of toast, which is the top of my personal food pyramid. So I invite you all to consider how these increasingly dark days affect you, how they make your body feel, and what you may want to do to honor our ancient inclination to slow down and to embrace darkness for what it has to offer. And tonight, may we all embrace the spookiness of Halloween and the magic of darkness. Thank you.
Hello again. Let's all join together in singing Love Will Guide Us. Love will guide us, peace is guide us, hope inside us, will lead the way on the road from greed to gain. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can hear from deep within. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace is guide us, hope inside us, lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard nights.
As Rachel extinguishes the chalice, I will share our benediction, which is a call and response. If you have your book with you, it's number 503, but I believe the words can also be put on the screen. And let me say that our benediction has a name of God in it, but feel free to interpret that however is comfortable for you. Okay, so when I raise my hand, we will all speak together and we'll go back and forth, you and I. Bless Adonai, who spins day into dusk. With wisdom, watch the dawn gates open. With understanding, let time and seasons come and go. With awe, perceive the stars in lawful orbit. Morning dawns, evening darkens, darkness and light yielding one to the other, yet each distinguished and unique. Marvel at life, strive to know its ways. Seek wisdom and truth, the gateways to life's mysteries. Wondrous indeed is the evening twilight. Blessed be. Thank you all. Happy Halloween!
Thank you, Emmeline. Now we will sing our closing song. And just to remind everybody on Zoom and here in the fellowship, we will also have a circle. And if you guys have any questions, Emmeline will be available in our circle to talk about embracing darkness and what we can do to nurture the darkness and keeping in touch with our own bodies. Now, please stand, form a circle. And on Zoom, please sing along, even though you'll be muted. Let there be peace on earth.